infinity and beyond.
All right, so now we're on to
Guardians of the Galaxy 1.
which is what?
You got a problem, right?
What's the word? Phase 2.5.
Still Phase 2.
Phase 2.5.
It's year 3 of Phase 2.
God. I thought Star Wars movies.
Well, no, I'm sorry. It's year 2 of Phase 2.
Whatever happened to the good old days, like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter,
Just some
where every
good
year
old
they make a
boys.
movie and it was like a direct
Never
sequel.
leave. What?
No.
Harry Potter every year?
Every year. Right. Well, you know.
No, actually, there's more gaps than I remember when I was watching them.
Yeah, it was like 3
They
years
took a
each.
couple. Oh no, some of them were. It would be like 3 years on, 2 years off, 3 years on. Weird.
Yeah.
They ended up averaging one every 2 years, I think.
So, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. So I remember when this movie was coming out in August 1st, 2014. There was a lot of talk about it being like a big. Gamble, as if there had never been a fucking sci-fi adventure movie before.
No, but
like,
nobody knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy were.
Like me included, I had very little knowledge of. I knew the Suicide Squad probably better than Guardians of the Galaxy, and that's saying something. But
I knew Harley Quinn.
she's not even an original member. She's
Fan favorite.
yeah. There's a lot of Harley Quinns in Halloween 2016.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the movie came out same year as Winter Soldier. It was like it's a weird sidetrack to do considering how relevant Winter Soldier is to Age of Ultron. But it's kind of like a welcome divergence, I guess, because it's one of my favorite movies. I don't know how you feel about it, but what are your feelings on it?
Guardians?
Yeah.
I thought it was a nice breath of fresh air because every other movie seemed like it was kind of on in the same wheelhouse, whereas Guardians literally was happening in like another galaxy.
Right.
So it's kind of nice to see that we could have a Marvel movie that wasn't part of this overriding plot. And that's kind of how I felt about Black Panther 2, but you know.
Black Panther 2, that's out already?
No, I mean, as well.
I'm kidding.
Oh, yeah. What was the box office on Guardians for such a risk?
It made cost 170 million.
Yeah.
And it grossed 773.
Which is
so
pretty
a
good.
shit ton for one. And it's really hard to judge these things because like you say it's the beginning of a series, but it's not because everybody knows it's going to relate to the Avengers. So it's really hard to judge these things.
But it is really different though. Like even how it was marketed.
And even, it's like it was marketed in a very interesting way that's since been aped not only by Marvel, but other people also. But with all the music and stuff.
Yeah, I think that Thor Ragnarok kind of borrowed heavily from the strategy that Guardians used.
But much to Thor Ragnarok's
chagrin.
Right. Like I think it benefited from that actually.
Yeah. Well, it was a different kind of movie.
Such a strange movie. That movie is like if we'll talk about it later, but if like Wes Anderson directed a Thor movie, that's pretty much what we got.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But yeah, it's a great movie. It's one of those few movies that actually properly introduces you to a cast of characters that you have no fucking prior knowledge to, and you actually kind of give a shit about them.
Yeah.
Like not a lot of movies. Honestly, Justice League didn't even do that.
Well, I think that's a trope of sci-fi movies, though, is that they know you don't know what the stakes are yet, but they have to lay everything out for you.
Right.
Like Star Wars did it, Star Trek does it, Guardians
we should say Star Wars did it, as in it doesn't do it anymore.
Well, yeah, but like even those old, well, right, yeah, because we still don't know who Snoke was. But
you never will.
And you never will.
And even if we do, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But you know, like even the old Roger Corman films, like I'm using this as like an extreme example.
Okay.
But like those are one-off films, some of them under an hour long, and they're able to still set the guidelines. And I think that's
try to.
Yeah, and just like here's the state of affairs, here's the players, like, and that's kind of what Guardians did. Was they were like, so nobody really. There are people out there who have prior knowledge. But 85% of all the people who currently watch Marvel movies have no idea who the Guardians of the Galaxy are. So they had to reintroduce them and kind of spell it out for people. And again, I mentioned this in the last part of the podcast that it does play heavily into the story arc involving Thanos and Infinity War and all that stuff because a lot of the characters in Guardians are directly linked.
Right.
But that's literally the only link.
Right.
Between their galaxy and the galaxy we know.
And I feel like that was kind of a big thing, not to cut you off, but like they kind of advertised Thanos as being in it, so I feel like a lot of people went in there because they were kind of going to get some context to something that's kind of been largely ignored in the other movies.
Yeah, because up until now, all you really know is Thanos is this big scary guy.
But we don't even really know that. We find out most of that in Guardians because all we really know is he's a guy who sits in a chair and turns around.
Right.
So there's that. But
yeah, and he like bitch slaps people.
Right.
And so
we don't even know that either. But so the movie is
well, right. But if he's gonna be the big bad, like it can't be like a Silver Surfer incident where it's like Galactus is really bad.
I can't stop
him,
and
we can't stop him.
But
except
you can.
We can.
But I'll
it'll kill me. But it won't.
It's so bad. But
thank God those movies are.
You know what though? I thoroughly enjoy both of those movies.
I haven't seen
in a
the second
Schumacher
one
kind
in
of
a
way.
while. I remember the part where Doctor Doom gets on his intergalactic surfboard and starts nuking.
I remember. That's so awesome. I have fond memories.
Doctor Doom is just a great character.
He really. He
needs
was.
He needs more. He needs someone to.
I want one of the reasons I want Marvel to buy Fox is not. I actually want them to leave X-Men completely alone, but I want them to fix Fantastic Four. And
I don't know how they would do it.
John Krasinski wants to play Mr. Fantastic.
I don't know if he'd work for
I think he could be okay. Just let him keep the beard.
That's just like a popular thing, though, where he's a popular actor and he's like, I could do it. But it was the same thing. The guy that they got to play, Norman Reed was his name.
In what?
He's Reed Richards.
Oh,
so the guy that got to play... No.
Miles Teller.
Well, Ione Grufford at the time weirdly was popular too because of the Horatio Hornblower series.
But that was like long after though.
No, yeah, but like
I don't know.
he wasn't really
always
like a big character.
He was always like a little popular.
A little.
He was never super popular, and he was
kind
never
of in the same way that
Chris O'Donnell
or what's his nuts from Phantom of the Opera.
Patrick Wilson.
Yeah, like he's kind of been popular, but not like leading man popular.
Right. Everybody's seen him, and nobody dislikes him, but
yeah.
That's pretty much.
But the guy that I forget his name, the guy that got to play Reed Richards in the
I own the remake.
No, Fan Forstick.
Oh, Miles Teller.
Miles Teller. He's kind of like a popular-ish actor. They like a lot of people are like referring to him as like the new Jimmy.
He's in like Whiplash and.
Yeah, but he's not like a great.
He's a pretty good actor, actually. He was completely wrong for that movie, but
yeah, but like I don't know, he's is what it is. But like that's a case where like you can't just cast people that are popular, and like I think that having Quiet Place guy
John
Krasinski play him, like he's a good actor, but would he be good for that role? I don't know, because Reed Richards was always kind of like this cut and dry
dork.
Yeah, and I don't know, I wouldn't really buy it. I mean, Krasinski was on The Office for years, and he
in
was
all fairness,
dork.
I think Ione Grufford was kind of perfect casting.
He was. Well, I think everybody
most
in
of
that
them,
movie
even
was.
Jessica Alba, who I can't stand, was served her purpose.
Even Chris Evans playing Johnny Storm.
It's great. I miss asshole Chris Evans. He's too nice in the Captain America. Well, he's kind of is, but he kind of is not. But back to Guardians of the Galaxy.
It's so interesting that we started talking about Fantastic Four.
But I do like how well this movie introduces characters. It actually reminds me of Pirates of the Caribbean, where like they don't feel like they're forcing the characters down your throat, but you kind of naturally attach to them.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is there's a lot of characters in Guardians of the Galaxy, like a lot.
And you know jack shit about any of them.
However, despite that being the case, they still managed to put the right amount of emphasis on the right characters. Like you can still tell who's the main characters and who isn't.
Right.
Despite all this stuff being kind of thrown at you.
By the way, the other is not a main character. This gets his neck snapped in like 5 minutes in.
Even Ronan's not really a main character.
No, he's a pretty weak sauce.
He kind of just looks like Gerard Way on a bad day.
Does Gerard Way have good days?
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
He's got. Oh shit! I was gonna make a reference to his album, Something Days, wasn't it?
Danger Days.
Is it? No, that's no. I was talking about his solo album, Strange Alien or something.
Oh,
whatever.
I can't remember.
But this movie was written and directed by James Gunn. Famously wrote Scooby-Doo, which I can tell because the humor is very
Gunn.
James Gunn.
Have something to do with Lost or no?
No. But James Gunn, he wrote and he just wrote Scooby-Doo, I think 1 and 2, the live action ones.
Like Zoinks.
And then he directed. Remember Sliver?
Oh yeah.
And Super, he directed that too.
I never saw Super.
I've seen it. It's all right. It's very James Gunn, but I think his humor really
Sliver
works.
is still like I've never seen it, but it's kind of decorated and honored as like this almost John Carpenter's Thing
Right.
level.
It's
of
like a very
appreciation.
strange movie. But
Yeah. Well, maybe it's just because it's got, our favorite actor from Serenity in it.
right, maybe.
Nathan Fillion.
Is he in Sliver?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
He plays like a
haven't
cop
seen
or something.
haven't seen that in a while. But one of the refreshing things about Guardians, especially after Winter Soldier, is Winter Soldier is such a fucking downtrodden movie.
Yeah.
And then this movie's like all fun and stuff.
Yeah, even though some of the stakes are pretty damn high.
Right, which is funny because Guardians 2 was a very downtrodden movie. like for the
it
most
was,
part.
but it really made me feel stuff that
Yeah.
I haven't felt watching a Marvel
It
movie in a while.
made me feel things in my pantal region.
Made me feel things in my hearty farce.
But yeah, all the characters are good. Dave Bautista is a great actor who luckily is in more stuff after this. He's in Bond, obviously. He's in Blade Runner 2.
Yeah, I don't know if he's a great
He's got screen
actor,
presence though.
but
Man.
like I think that his role as
he does well.
Bedlam or whatever his name is,
Drax,
Drax,
the Destroyer.
Drax the Destroyer is good because he's kind of so one-dimensional as an actor as far as like his tone,
Right.
that it makes a lot of sense having him play that kind of like coy character.
Right.
So I mean the casting is excellent. I was really worried about Chris Pratt as a leading man because up until then he was in Parks and Recreation.
So I don't watch Parks and Rec. My first exposure to him was in that movie.
I've seen all of Parks and Rec and I genuinely enjoyed it. But Chris Pratt was kind of a fool in it, so I was like, "Really? Like you're gonna give him this role?" But like
He got
ended
jacked
up,
as fuck.
he ended up doing a great job. But like again,
Got so jacked.
look at Krasinski, who was in The Office, and now he's directing and acting in all these movies.
All right,
So
and
it's
you got
like,
Steve Carell, who was in The Office, and
yeah, he was in The Big Short. He was good in that.
I haven't seen it.
But
That was
But I
also
don't
like
know.
10 years after.
But no,
the
The
film.
Guardians was a good movie, and again, it was nice because it
Very
was
good.
isolated and
Right.
it told one story and it did it well.
But kind of in the same way, like Winter Soldier is like a state of affairs for Earth stuff. Like it's kind
Yeah.
of a state of affairs for like the galactic stuff.
Yeah, and I think it was a story that needed to be told because of how intergalactic affairs is going to play a role in the series moving forward. 'Cause
Especially
they
like after Doctor Strange.
yeah,
and-
because of
with
everything moving
Infinity
in
War and
together, and more so in Thor Ragnarok as well.
Right.
I think they needed to make Guardians because they needed to be like, okay, not everything happens on planet Earth.
Right, and not everything involves Thor, Captain America, or Iron Man.
Yeah.
So that's good.
And it's nice too because, the Guardians is a big group of people that are all have their own strengths, even if most of their strengths are just being able to kick lots of ass.
Right.
And they didn't have to make a movie about every one of them. They just made
Right.
them all
And I
together.
gotta say that it's probably like Guardians 1 and 2 are probably two of the best comedies,
Yeah.
which is weird because like when the funniest movie in a long time is a movie that's not
Well,
primarily
they're just
comedy.
one of the more emotionally
Right.
like
but they're really funny
intriguing. No, they're funny.
too. They
but
get
that's-
away with some jokes
well,
I
that's the
can't
thing,
believe Disney
though.
lets them get away
Yeah.
with.
Well, the chemistry is great. They got a lot of great talent in there.
Right.
Like, Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel.
they have
Oh yeah, Vin Diesel. Yeah,
but they got him,
Batista,
they got Batista, Zoe Saldini, they got Saldana,
Bradley Cooper,
Yeah, like they got a ton of great talent, great method actors in there.
Ronan the Accuser.
Yeah. Who played him? I forgot.
It's
Shia LaBeouf, right?
no, it's not. It's Tim Pace or Lee Pace.
Lee Pace. Oh yeah,
He's
who
in.
plays nobody's
he's in-
favorite character
well,
in
no,
any movies.
He's
but
in the Hobbit movies.
like I said, he plays like bit roles and
I
stuff.
don't. Yeah, he's in a lot of stuff. But I also
Ronan goes down in history as the most boring Marvel villain, but
I like his overacting though. I dig it.
yeah,
That's
and
pretty much all he
I kind of liked it because of how stoic he was. It kind of really made the Guardians
Contrasted
stand
well.
out more.
Right. Which I think was the point.
And any movie about a ragtag group of rebellious young individuals in
Right.
space trying to fight an evil empire is just a great movie. Like,
I'm amazed they haven't done it before. It's
yeah,
crazy.
you'd think that they would have, you
Right.
know.
It's too bad.
They definitely wouldn't have ruined it in recent years
Right.
of a really shitty
Like
movie.
a War of Stars or
Yeah,
Flash
or
Gordon.
something, like Jedi's Lost or
they should
something.
have. They should do a new Flash Gordon.
Maybe they will.
You know what though? They shouldn't
But,
because
I
it'll
don't
never be
know.
better than Flash
Just
Gordon.
think about that movie and Masters of the Universe were kind of like poorly received, So it'd be interesting to see if nowadays they'd be better received. Because I remember growing up as a kid, superhero movies are really rare.
Mm-hmm.
And
You pretty much had Batman.
You had Batman, the occasional Superman,
Like Blade sometimes.
some really low rent Spider-Man movies and things like that.
Punisher
But like,
every
they
once
always
in a
felt
while.
very like, oh, that's interesting, very novel, like, you know, The Shadow, whatever.
Right.
Now it's like 80% of all blockbusters coming out are
Pretty much.
superhero.
And now that
comic
like
book
giant
based.
monster movies are coming back, which is sweet.
which is great because I grew up watching that.
Right.
But it's like if I was a kid now,
kids are so fucking spoiled.
yeah,
now.
they're so lucky, you know.
Dude, like it wasn't none of
we
this
had to
shit
go
was
watch
cool when
this
we
shit.
were younger.
Yeah, we had to get picked on because we like comic books.
Right now it's like everything.
Yeah, now everybody likes comic books.
So this, I'm just going to quickly mention, this movie introduces another Infinity Stone, the power one, I think. Ends up locked up on Xandar with Glenn Close randomly, of all
Xandar's
people.
Glenn
But so
Close.
I wonder if that's going to be a scene in Infinity War, is him breaking in there, killing John C. Reilly and Glenn Close. That'd be kind of cool.
John C. Reilly.
Yeah, he played the cop. He was in that.
The cop.
The guy who arrests him and then he's like working with him.
Oh, that's
He's
right.
the-
That's
yeah.
right. Because Glenn Close plays a Galactic Empire's
Prick.
like person,
Right. But
which they're human, presumably, but like none of them address Earth or anything.
they're
like
not from
that.
Earth. They're just humans. They're what are they called? They call them Terrans or whatever,
Terrans.
something like that.
Yeah, because Terra is the
Then
physiological name for Earth
yeah,
in
which
the
is
galactic sphere.
I think did Star Trek invent that?
I don't know who really.
It's been a thing
invented
since
it.
Star Trek. Post credit scene is just Howard the Duck. I don't think that'll ever come back.
Thank God.
Dude, no, if there's a scene though when they're like when like maybe the collector's place is getting like trashed at the beginning of Infinity War, and then Howard the Duck just like pops up and like shoots somebody, I'd be happy. It'd be fun.
Howard the Duck. I mean,
He's invincible. He's like
he's
what's his name? McSix Pitlick, pretty much. He's like an interdimensional being.
No,
It's so
but, like,
strange.
I don't know. I mean, the movie about
Let's
him
not talk
wasn't
about
good.
But
So then the next one is
wait, arbitrary rating 1 to 10.
Oh, 9.
I would say
I liked that movie.
I
a
would
lot.
say 9. I would say it's very
And
good.
again, it's one of those standalone good movies.
Right, and you can kind of watch it without being part of a marathon, which not always you can. I'll tell you what.
No.
Next up, Age of Ultron. It's good shit. Came out May 1st, 2015. What are your feelings on that?
Way better than the first Avengers. It felt like it had a lot more weight. Like
Right.
even the fact that like they were all like, "Oh, we're so great." You know, we just did this, that, and the other, we defended this, and then like Ultron shows up, and James
Wrecks their
Spader
shit.
in his best Spader voice just shits on everybody. Like, "Oh, you think you're great, don't you?" Like, well, here's blah blah blah. Like, not that's paraphrasing, but
Right. No, it's funny. People think that Ultron's like he's not usually on the list of like weak Marvel villains, and I don't really agree with that.
you know, having never read any of the comic books about him, I can't really say, but I always remember his visage, and I remember him being really interesting.
Right.
The only thing I wish he had in that movie that he didn't was a cape.
And multiple arms.
Yeah, the multiple arms is less
Yeah.
important to me, but
That's
like it
true.
would have been better if he was.
He
fighting.
has the cape, and the
It would
one
have been
scene.
better
They
if
have
he
the scene
made
he
a
has the cape.
stand, because like he really
Kinda.
didn't make a great stand in that movie as far as like an individual bias against a villain.
Right.
But if he had all the arms and he had at one point like all of the Avengers in each of his hands, like trying to crush their foes
Right.
and stuff, that would have been kind of
Be
cool.
a good poster.
But instead, they replaced that fight with a faceless army of Ultron.
Another number
number 3 faceless army of
3 or 4 if you count
victimless
Thor.
robots. It is funny how much Justice League ripped off Age of Ultron.
Yeah, even with like the European village getting attacked and
Yeah,
everything.
they had a lot of the same
Which is weird to
things.
borrow from a movie from 2 years ago, but it happens, I guess.
Well, I think it's because they were like, well, what was the most recent Avengers movie? Let's do that.
Like Civil War, like, no, it doesn't count. Age of
Yeah, it
Ultron.
really doesn't. I mean, Civil War could have been Avengers, but it wasn't.
It's not, though,
technically.
because they don't work together.
That's true. And they're not the Avengers. They're more like the aggressors.
Half of them are the Avengers.
Yeah.
But,
Now, Age of Ultron was really good. It had a lot of great
right.
interpersonal communicado between
Yeah, and that's
the
the thing is
characters.
like, I think Joss Whedon described it. He's like, you don't make a movie bigger. He's like, you just make it deeper. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, like, oh, Joss.
Because he's like, you can't make a movie bigger than the Avengers, so you just make it deeper. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
a good way to look at it, though.
If Avengers 1 was a bathtub, Avengers 2 was a bathtub full of jello.
Right, because if the movie was just Avengers 1 with them fighting more faceless things, he'd be like,
Yeah,
But,
and
like,
they
the fact
still
that it's a good
found
character
room
study.
for that, but there was a lot
Right.
of good teamwork. So like in Avengers 1, it's a lot of like I don't want to work together.
Yeah, fuck
And
you.
then
man.
they find a way to work together. In Avengers 2, it's like we're working together. Now we
Right.
have this big
It's actually
threat.
a well-oiled machine and
yeah,
stuff.
and then they
For the
have to
most
fight
part.
a well-oiled machine
Right.
who is
Nah.
basically designed to take them out.
He
And
lubes up
I really liked that about it.
right.
The one thing, glaring issue with it was that you could tell that there were certain roles that could have been carried over from Iron Man 3,
Right.
but because of how shitty Iron Man 3 was and how they killed some of the characters in Iron Man 3 that could have been in that.
Right.
Like they had this eugenics lady that
Right.
could like regrow arms and things like that. That could have been the girl who invented
extremist
the
girl.
extremist
Right.
program.
Played by Rebecca Hall, I think.
Yeah. And she was actually, I liked her in Iron
She's a
Man
good
3. I
actress.
thought she was an interesting character,
Right.
but they literally shat her out in that movie for no reason.
Just cause.
Yeah, just cause.
Same reason they did everything in that movie.
Just cause.
Who's
They're
gonna
like, well,
stop?
why'd you do that? Just cause. So I think that
They actually
Ultron would have been stronger narratively if Iron Man 3 hadn't sucked so bad.
Right.
Because it carried over a ton from Winter Soldier,
Right.
but it didn't carry over anything from any of the other movies.
No.
So,
And he immediately has a million suits again.
yeah.
So apparently he blew up his suits for Pepper and then immediately was like, meh, fuck it.
Yeah, well, I think they were kind of trying to erase that from memory.
It's because it's a bad movie.
But
There was
I
actually
think
there was
about
actually a
it's-
deleted scene in Iron Man 3 when
where
when
he's like, just one more.
no
suit."
when Tony Stark like throws his remember at the end he throws his heart thing off into the ocean.
Yeah.
He's actually going to go down to the shore and milk a giant four-breasted thing for blue milk.
And then
for
like
blue
you
milk.
know, he has a dream about like him floating in the ocean with Scarlett Johansson. He's like, I'll never let you go.
And then he was like, you didn't even hesitate.
You were never even in the game.
Right.
But
But
Age of Ultron is good.
great action scene. Great Jeremy Renner doing stuff actually.
But I also like the balance between action and dialogue because I felt
Right.
like for every 10 minutes of action, there was like 20 minutes of dialogue.
At
and
least, yeah.
Like it was a good step pattern. So like it didn't feel like they rushed anywhere, and it felt like every action scene was deserved. It also it did a great job of establishing chemistry between the the characters that were otherwise kind of forced together in the first Avengers. They felt like it fleshed out things a lot
Right,
better.
and even though it's like the 11th movie, it has good second movie syndrome where it has enough things from the first Avengers to make you feel kind of comfortable or whatever.
Yeah, the only thing that I thought was a little ham-fisted was at the beginning where they raid the Hydra base. Just felt a little cartoony.
It was just they wanted the kick-ass Avengers scene.
yeah,
at the
but it was like
start of the
it
movie.
was like the Hollywood cinema version of the Daredevil hallway scene
right.
where they're just like, we're going there. Okay, let's go there. All right, we're still going there. They're driving, like shooting things and all
Yeah.
that stuff, and it's like, why didn't they just like airdrop in? They
cooler.
have those ships that can cloak and all that stuff. Like I forget what the Quinjet,
Yep.
which is like the quintet jet.
Oh,
but
it's,
like
'cause it's got 4.
yeah, but like why didn't they just take that in there? Why did he think an ATV was the best way to get there? You know, like
It was awesome.
I don't know.
anyway.
That whole thing felt corny, but I get it.
It
They were
reminds, me
trying
of,
to.
it reminds me of the intro of Expendables too. Just it's this crazy.
And that's the thing, honestly, it really did remind me of an Expendables movie. And like, it's the Avengers, not the Expendables, but they had to get to square one where
Hey,
they captured the Maximus.
Give them credit for
so-
killing a faceless army of humans for once.
Hail Hydra.
right.
But they had,
So-
they had to introduce the Maximus,
Right.
so, you know.
You still had some infighting. Why somebody has to fight the Hulk in every movie? Thor fights the Hulk twice.
Yeah.
Now Tony Stark fights the Hulk. So he's gonna fight Thanos will fight the Hulk, I guess.
It was funny, though, how they introduced Ultron, because it was almost like there's been other films where Tony Stark's like, oh, I got this thing that'll do
And it
that
usually
thing.
works.
And it usually worked, and it did. But then it came back to bite them in the ass
Right.
and became a whole movie. And I'm like, well, that's ironic.
Right.
But that's why it was great, because at the end when they make the vision, everybody's like, no, Tony, don't do it. He's like, just this one last time. It's like,
And it works. again.
please don't. It actually works, but like,
It's actually
just-
another thing is that so a lot of people complain that they crowbarred like Vision in there. I think it works perfectly well for the movie
I think it does when you consider how intelligent
in context
his
and everything.
AI was,
Right.
but it does kind of beg the question. It's like, so his AI has a soul, and you're able to just program it into things.
Well,
but,
no, it's like
but
it
Ultron
was-
didn't have a
it
soul.
was like
He was a program.
It was bleed over. So they put the mind. So pretty much, even though Jarvis has parts of Ultron in him,
He also has parts of Tony.
Right.
Because he remembers everything that Tony ever asked him and all that
Right,
stuff.
but
like Google.
Right. No, not like Google.
No.
But so
that would have been a more believable thing if Ultron was just Google.
Yeah, definitely not Cortana.
If you Google, how do I save the world one more time? You know what? Fuck it. I'll do it myself.
No, but so the soul gem, I think it's the soul gem. No, the mind gem, I'm sorry, is what powers him.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason he's got remnants of Ultron is because Ultron...
Because I am Ultron.
No, it's because Ultron, remember, he was transferring his body into it before,
Right.
and he got interrupted. So there's parts of Ultron and Jarvis in there.
Yeah.
So they explain it actually pretty fucking well. But
No, I think that's
but
stronger.
a lot of people
one
miss
of the
that.
stronger movies as far as the narrative
Right.
goes.
It feels so Michael Bay, too,
Yeah.
in a good way. A lot of people think it's a
And
bad
I
thing.
really, there was a lot of stuff in it that was kind of like a fuck you to like classic movie tropes.
Right.
Where like ordinarily there'd be the scene where like they'd finally beat Ultron's body and then he's like, I got a bigger, stronger Wakandan vibranium body. Now you got to take it out. But instead they were like, they just had him shred.
I mean, he got a vibranium body, but they just melted the shit out of it. So apparently vibranium can be melted if the Vision, Thor, and Iron Man are shooting at you.
No. Well, yeah. But that's the thing, though.
That's pretty next level, so I guess that'll happen.
Well, obviously
I mean,
it's not indestructible.
They have to be able to smelt her at somehow.
Well, yeah, they're able to make weapons out of it. So, but I just think it's funny because, like, that's the kind of thing that I would like to see more of in movies is where it's like, you know, you think that, like, this is, like, the big bad, but then, like, he just shreds himself in half and he's like, I'm bigger and better now. And it's like, oh, great. Like, it's a nice way to kind of, like, tongue-in-cheek introduce him.
Right.
Again, I wish he had the red cape. But, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Even if they made it so, like, at one point, since they were in, like, another country, like, let's say their flag was, like, mostly red, and then, like, he, like, jumped up on a flagpole
They
and, like,
do have
ripped
the
it down
one
or
scene in the
something.
church where he has the cloak, though.
That's
Very
true. But
briefly.
he literally takes it immediately off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But people complain about his character design. We'll move on in a second, but...
well, just because he's, like, Optimus Prime and Ultron.
Well, no,
got
because
together.
he looks like Ultron, but Ultron's mouth never moved in the comics, and his eyes... Like, he couldn't act. So they had to change it so the character could act.
No, I get that, but he does look a lot like Optimus Prime. Like,
I
that's
guess
kind of
sort
their
of.
way around it. Like, he has, like, the moving mouth and all that stuff.
Yeah, moving mouth. Crazy.
Yeah. No, I know, but, like, Ultron looked more like the Destroyer from Thor in the comic books.
He looked like, I don't know, like Metallo, kind of. Like, his mouth never moved, and his eyes didn't have pupils. He pretty much...
Well, yeah, his head was, like, on fire the whole time.
It would have been impossible for it to act, so they had to change
I get
it.
that.
And
and I don't even think that was a bad character.
I think it's a great
design.
character.
I thought it was a
frankly,
great...
adaptation.
Yeah, that's compromise. It was a good compromise between, like, making it look like the original comic book, but making it a feasible character to be in a motion picture.
Because if you had to listen to that thing talk and it's just like you're staring at its face not moving for 2 hours, you'd just stop kidding.
Yeah, I've seen enough Keanu Reeves movies to know what that's like.
That's not fair. Just watched Speed a little while ago, or
Speed.
No, Point Break. That's so good, dude.
Point Break.
Yeah. So the budget of this was $250 million. Made $1.4 billion, so it made a lot of money. So the post-credit sequence for this actually doesn't. It only has one, which a lot of people were surprised by.
Mm-hmm.
So like, there's nothing at the end of the credits; it's just in the middle, and it's just Thanos grabbing the Infinity Gauntlet, which makes no sense in the context of this movie.
Because Ultron wasn't even related to Thanos.
He has nothing to do with Thanos.
So with him being like, if you want something done right, do it yourself.
Yeah,
that's more of
it
a...
makes in
that
context of Guardians.
Right, it would have made more sense if that was a Guardians teaser.
So I think it makes sense, not in context of the movie, but in the context of, because it takes place after Guardians, he's already sent 2 people to do his bidding and they failed, so...
Yeah.
But the only reason they did it is because they wanted another Thanos teaser at the end of another Avengers movie. So
yeah, I was thinking about that earlier, leading up to it. That didn't make a whole lot of sense contextually.
But arbitrary rating from 1 to 10. I'd say it's a 10. It's been my top 5 easy. I
would give it a 9 or 10. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there are things I think could have been delivered on better, but it's more of a fault of the films leading up to it.
Right. It can't do everything. It can't carry the water for the entire...
Unfortunately, because these are movies which are fictional, but they are also made in real life by real people.
Right.
There are things that happen in real life that can't be helped that affect the production of these films, and I can't really fault the film for it. But, that's my only real grievances with it, are things that could have been better adapted, I guess. But
all right. So one more movie in Phase 3, which I disagree that this should have been encapsulated in Phase 3, but or Phase 2. I'm sorry, but it's Ant-Man, and it's in my opinion, a very weak movie to follow Age of Ultron with. But
because it feels like it was made in the early 2000s.
Right. Well, it feels like I don't know.
It's like if they made a Marvel movie before every Marvel movie led up to this one.
No, what it's like is if they made a Marvel movie with a budget of $130 million, which is what they did.
Well, yeah, but is that light?
It's the lowest
how
budget.
low was the budget of
it's
Age
the lowest,
of Ultron?
How low, or you mean how high?
What was it?
It was $250 million.
Oh, okay.
Quarter of a billion.
What did it make?
$1.4 billion.
Yeah. So did it make less than Iron Man 3?
Nope. Just a little bit
more. Did it make less than The Last Jedi?
No.
Really?
Last Jedi just broke, I think it was like 1.1 billion.
Oh, really? That's refreshing.
Yeah, but it's still too much for that movie. But it's as little as a Star Wars movie could probably
No,
make.
but Ant-Man just felt like it should have come out years ago. Like it even had like remnants of Hydra and stuff in it where like it felt more like it should have been like after Iron Man 1.
My problem with Ant-Man though is, well, one, Edgar Wright was supposed to direct it, and it would have been 1,000 times better because everything he does is good.
Edgar Wright of
Shaun of the Dead and stuff. Yeah, he wrote the whole movie. Then they fired him. He was going to direct it. Then they fired him, rewrote parts of it, yada, yada, yada. Brought in like a television director to do it. Something like that. So that probably didn't help. But the movie came out in July 17th, 2015. So this movie's really close to Age of Ultron too. It's only a couple months.
Yeah.
Which is weird because that means the rest of 2015 has nothing. Which it seems like a good idea I think the only motivation I can see for not having it in the second half of 2015 is because they didn't want to get anything big close to Star Wars.
Yeah, that makes sense because they knew it was coming out.
Yeah, they didn't want people to get like blockbuster
people get
atrophy. They get like blockbuster atrophy.
Well, yeah, like they wouldn't need any help of The Force Awakens.
No. Even similarly that year, Mission Impossible 5 was going to come out Christmas that year.
Yeah.
And it actually moved up, which doesn't happen often. It came out in July instead because they wanted a longer run and they didn't want to run opposite Star Wars.
Yeah.
So everybody knew to stay out of Star Wars.
Everybody knows to not compete with Star Wars.
No, especially when it's the first time in 10 years.
Yeah.
But the movie's fine. I think Paul Rudd's great casting for the movie. It's just I don't have strong links to the character, and the plot's pretty unspectacular.
Well, and the other thing too is like Ant-Man has always been like one of the more keynote characters in the Avengers.
He's very important in the comics.
Yeah, like he was always in the Avengers.
He made Ultron actually.
So to have him, that's again why I think that this movie was made in poor timing. And like even the way it was filmed felt like it was an older movie.
Right.
And its relationship to the Iron Man franchise with Howard Stark being like the guy who kind of messed everything up for everybody.
Right.
Never trust a Stark. That should have been the teaser at the end of Iron Man 3.
Right.
But I think that it came out in poor timing. Like it should have come out after Thor, honestly.
Right. Like
or after Iron Man 2 or something.
Yeah, because he's one of the original members.
And he's always been. And they were like, "Oh, he's not interesting enough. We don't need him in there." But
they're not wrong.
But then you kind of have to ask yourself how different the film series would be if Ant-Man was
right. Because then he could have made Ultron, and it would be less focused, though. I get why they excised him, I guess.
Yeah, but even the way that they delivered his character, like he's not the genius that he was in the original comics.
Well, it's because they felt the need to. So Hank Pym is the original Ant-Man in the comics. So they have old Hank Pym as the guy who was. It's one of those weird like Zorro. They turned into Legend of Zorro, but not because Legend of Zorro was one of the best movies. But
you mean Mask of Zorro?
Oh, sorry, yeah, Legends the sequel, which actually isn't bad. Mask of Zorro is great.
Yeah,
but
and also has Michael Douglas in it.
No, it doesn't.
No, it's Anthony Hopkins. I'm sorry.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, so the plot's unspectacular. It's like a heist movie for the last 20 minutes, which the whole movie was supposed to be like, and I don't know. I don't have a lot to say about it.
It's kind of funny because they say it's old Hank Pym, right?
Right.
And it's so like they waited so long to make that movie that he was too old.
Yeah, so they waited so long. The original Ant-Man couldn't even be.
Doesn't have the broad from Lost in it.
Sorry,
the lady from Lost.
Evangeline Lilly. Yeah.
Is that her? Yeah. Who doesn't age apparently.
No, she doesn't.
Unlike Michael Douglas
and Paul Rudd.
Well, Paul Rudd doesn't age either.
Sometimes he has a beard. That's pretty much it.
Yeah,
but
I'm pretty sure Paul Rudd found the fountain of youth somewhere.
Probably. And bottom of a bong or something.
And I like Paul Rudd. He's great in like 90s movies and stuff.
Yeah,
so it's
great.
kind of funny having him in that role, but like it was just a really weird
But also, he
movie.
just got jacked for no reason. He's literally shirtless for 3 seconds in that movie. Like, they made him suffer for a year for 3 seconds of film.
Yeah.
He didn't need to be jacked. He was CGI most of the movie in a suit. Poor guy.
Just, I wish his villain was CGI. God,
He was.
That guy, he was,
Dude.
no, wasn't he cardboard?
Corey Stoll, I like him as an actor.
Oh, I don't know if I like him as an actor. I've only seen him in a couple of bit roles.
But I like him as an actor. I think he was one of the highlights, except for the character was just so two-dimensional. It's crazy.
I'm bad because Hank Pym made me that way.
Because Hank Pym never hugged me.
Yeah. I never had a son.
Yeah, it was so two-dimensional.
Well,
some of the action's really good. I like some of the stuff. And
it is, but to me it had kind of like a Deadpool thing going for it where it felt like it was trying to cash in. Excuse me, it's late, guys. It kind of felt like it was trying to cash in on a small audience.
Right.
No pun intended, because they shrank a lot.
Well,
but like where it was like almost very Disney. Like they even had the scene where like he froze the toy train and it super cuts to like the little train like bumping off.
Right.
You know?
It's funny.
Like I don't know. Like I guess I got where they're going from or coming from. Rather.
The only reason I like the movie, or I think the movie is interesting to have, is one, it makes it so you can have him in Civil War, which was cool, because you couldn't really just have him show up that much. I guess you could, but that, and they have the whole thing where he like shrinks down and he has like an existential cosmic crisis or whatever at the end.
Yeah,
of the movie.
but like I feel like that kind of happens in Doctor Strange.
No, I know, but it kind of lends into the whole cosmic thing. So maybe like Hank Pym or Ant-Man will be doing like cosmic shit in Infinity War somewhere.
Well, what if that's how they kill Thanos?
They shrink down and go into like his molecule. Actually, I don't know if Ant-Man's in Infinity War.
He's got to be, right?
I don't know if he is. They haven't. I don't know. They haven't shown him any of the promotional stuff.
Yeah, I guess not. What happened to him after Civil War? He was
arrested.
Yeah,
but then Cap breaks him out. I guess.
Well, then they got to all be in Wakanda, right?
Theoretically, unless he went back, because I mean, nobody was there to. He's a criminal. He's used to being on the run, I guess. But
yeah, it's true. I don't know. I thought they tried to start something new with his character, but like I think it was kind of too late.
I think he's a good character to have around. I just don't know if he needed his own movie.
Yeah, but I guess so.
And like the whole thing with Falcon, like they had like a little Avengers thing because they had to like kind of substantiate the movie by having Avengers stuff in it.
Yeah, but that was like the only tie-in, really.
And the only tie-in is because that's why he shows up in Civil War, is because like he fought him or whatever. But so Hank Pym's wife, like another absent mother in a Disney movie, but that's probably what the next movie is going to be about. You think? Like the next, they're making an Ant-Man and Wasp.
Oh, so they can have like
they're going to go into like the cosmic dimension.
The Carrie Fisher, Peter Cushing CGI, Michael Douglas while he was young. He's like, I love my wife. She and I were superheroes together. Did you get a distinct kind of Watchmen theme
from
Ant-Man?
A little bit. A lot of it takes place in a mansion.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but it also had a lot of like, the past is repeating itself. Like, we were young superheroes, now we're old. Now we need more young superheroes. Like,
right.
Add the whole Night Owl, Silk. What the hell? It's Silk Spectre.
Right.
Was that what she was called in Watchmen?
Yep.
Like it had that whole dynamic thing going for it, whereas like we were the old superheroes back when Captain America wasn't around, and now we're
and you've
really
never
old.
heard of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's a fun movie. The CGI young Michael Douglas is always fun.
Yeah, I just think the whole thing could have been better integrated into the whole franchise.
But also, so one of the loose threads they have to answer for is don't they make off with a Pym particle and a Yellow Jacket suit? The Hydra dude?
I don't know if they do or not.
He has a briefcase of something. It's either a Pym particle or it's a suit. I can't remember.
I'd have to rewatch it to really remember.
So they have to...
Because I could have sworn he went and righted all the wrongs in that movie.
I think he runs off with it, but maybe not.
What they should have done was made so that they were trying to sell that to the guy in Wakanda or in Hong Kong or wherever in Black Panther, and then they'd have to rescue that as well.
Right.
That was like a little tie-in.
Unless that was an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or something.
Maybe.
That doesn't count to the movies
that'd
anyway.
suck if it was.
But, right. And then, so the post-credit sequence is... So this is weird. It's the only time so far in history that the post-credit sequence is a scene from a movie. Because it's just when they have, like, Bucky like in the Vice or whatever in Civil War when they're interrogating him, and then they like talk about how they're gonna go recruit.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because it's like
it's like a straight excerpt from the movie.
Yeah,
which is weird for a couple of
but
reasons.
no, that's not the only time because they also have the teaser leading into Black Panther at the end of Civil War, where they're interrogating.
Yeah,
him.
but that's not from Black Panther.
Yeah, it is.
No.
Yeah, it's the scene where they're interrogating him is like, have you ever heard of Wakanda?
Oh no,
like,
that's not in Civil War.
That's
the trailer for Black Panther.
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought it was a teaser.
The teaser for Civil War is them freezing Bucky, and then he's at Wakanda. Captain America's in Wakanda.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's weird. So they didn't even have a post. It's kind of shows they didn't give a shit about this movie as much because one, it only made like $516 million, which isn't great.
Considering the budget, it's pretty good.
Right. I guess so. But considering it's the first, that's like the only movie post Avengers to make less than like $700
It paid for like
million.
one scene out of Infinity War.
Yeah, right. But it's weird, but it works, I guess. But it kind of shows that they didn't care as much because they just used an excerpt from a finished movie instead of making something specially for it. But yeah, so arbitrary rating from 1 to 5 or 1 to 10.
5 or 6. I
I'm
don't
gonna
know.
give it like a 5.
It was okay. I enjoyed it while I watched it.
I think I have to give it a 5.5 because 5 is no wait. What did I give it 5? Captain America? Yeah, like a 5. Maybe a 4.
I don't know. It was an interesting
It's
excerpt.
fun, but it doesn't.
I felt like it didn't need to be made.
No, it's not necessary, but it's good for context, I guess. Sort
Yeah,
of.
because I guess you wouldn't be able to have Ant-Man in Civil War if it weren't for that movie.
Yeah, and that was fun. So
Yeah.
all right, so that's it for phase 2. It's a weird way to end it, right?
Yeah.
Instead of like a
Ending on
Avengers movie.
Yeah.
But, it's all
But
good.
again, they wanted to crowbar it in because they knew the next one was going to require him. So
Yeah, I guess they didn't want to. I guess better to end on a weak note than to start on one. Like if they started at
that's
phase
true.
3,
I guess if you began that phase with Ant-Man, it might be like, this is kind of jarring.
Right, and then they started with Civil War, which we'll cover next. So we'll get to that next time here.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, have a good one.